All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's great to have you all back here again today. This is a month that is filled with many ups and downs in terms of weather, and also it is tax time, and I have found that I apparently now qualify as a small business owner, so if I'm ever interviewed on television, that will be on my chevron. Anyways, I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, K-Libra. How are you doing, K-Libra?
Do you feel like you're a victim of success?
Absolutely. I'm always suffering from success.
Okay. Do you want to stop the suffering?
Why? Do you have an alternative for me?
I mean, there are alternatives. I mean, if you're suffering from something, you can always stop. You can always stop asking people to be our patrons or something. You can always do that.
Oh, well, I wouldn't do that.
If you want to stop Zill's suffering, do not join our Patreon under any circumstances. It's really, really painful. See, just admit it right now that he's a victim of success. You don't want to victimize this fair and intelligent entrepreneur here, so don't patronize us at all. And that was like the fastest plug I've ever done, but you know, I couldn't miss the opportunity.
That was fast.
People who know this show by now would have been like, "Oh, you didn't want to do one? That would have been perfect." Well, I'm getting it. I'm on the ball, people. Okay, I'm not tired today. I'm doing what I got to do. And I want to keep my energy levels nice and steady. So yeah, a victim of success. Well, but it's nice. I really am glad that actually, you know, we can even joke about that because, you know, this started off as like just a really humble thing, and also like we did it in case people wanted to be a little helpful, a little generous. But hey, you know, here we are. So that sucks to have to do the tax thing because, Jesus Christ, go after the people who actually got the money, the oligarchs and powers.
But the good news is it sounds very extremely likely that I will not have to pay anything in tax because I can claim conventions as travel expenses.
Oh my, that is good.
So anyways, I mean,
stellar.
It looks like everything's going to turn up Millhouse, which means that, and I shit you not, the amount I'm going to get in my tax return, I swear to God, I am not joking, is 69 cents.
Wow, that's it? That's funny, but that's it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Don't worry, everybody. I think it's funny, too. Funny number.
Haha, nice.
Yeah, don't be a patron.
Anyways, I am excited because we have a very special episode lined up today. And I have a very good friend of mine who's joining us and is going to be regaling us about a specific franchise that's near and dear to his heart. But without further ado, Iron, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, friends. I am Iron Boomer. Been a furry for far too many years. I am also Peter, the producer and host of Recorder on the Wall, the oldest Redwall podcast in existence.
Hell yeah. And it's a good one, too.
Thank you.
It's funny because I got just the tiniest bit of introduction to it and like the other episode, and now I'm like, oh, I have a minor amount of context for this thing that is supposedly a big fucking deal.
Yeah, it's funny. We were literally just talking about Redwall in the last episode, so.
For context, folks, if you're interested in my podcast, we actually just finished the last book. All 22 are under our belt.
Nice.
Thank you.
But you know, we're also having you here to talk about a very special franchise in its own that's very much related to transformation.
Yep, not Redwall at all.
Though we may wish.
So
what are we going to be talking about? What is it? Are we talking about Redwall? I don't know what Redwall is.
So what color do you like best then? Blue, red, orange, or purple?
Red.
Oh, definitely purple.
Very interesting.
Purple? I thought you were red.
I mean, you took red, so I don't want to pick the same one, so I'll pick purple.
Okay. Anyway,
those of you who did not see the episode title or don't get what I just said, yes, this is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles special.
Hell yeah. And for the record, I do like the purple one the best. So
Purple like Turtle is the best turtle. I'll 100% agree with that.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, I was really excited to have Iron on because this is actually something we've talked about since I think season 4, we talked about maybe doing a special on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, especially given I think they are a pretty formative part of a lot of people's childhoods, and it is inherently related to the concept of transformation. Yep. So I'm excited that we get to kind of have an expert here who can walk us through some of the peaks and valleys and share some unique insights that even I'm not necessarily privy to, because I will confess that my consumption of TMNT is not as up to par as perhaps it should have been. I definitely dropped off in recent years, so I'm excited to hear more too.
Yep. This franchise has been going on since 1984, so it's about as old as I am. Yep, silver muzzle in the house. But it didn't hit its massive worldwide stride until the 1987 cartoon, which, depending on the average age of your audience, they may or may not be familiar with. So, since then, there have been a total of, five total cartoons. We're in the fifth one right now. There have been 6 movies. Seven movies, by my count. And there have been a lot of comic books where the series started, and still continues to this day.
And are we including the Michael Bay movie?
Yeah, we'll touch on that one. Those two. So, unlike our colleagues over in the Transformers franchise fandom, while TMNT fans don't have to like Michael Bay, he didn't do near as much damage as he did to Transformers.
That's true.
He did fair amount, but it's not as bad as it could have been.
Yeah, I think it's kind of difficult to top what they did in which one was it? I think the second Transformers movie. That one had some very interesting creative choices. I'll call them creative choices and leave it at that.
And Devastator Scrotum, represented by Wrecking Balls.
Exactly.
Didn't really put any time and especially any money into watching any of that stuff, and I
haven't missed much.
The people who keep doing it. No, of course I didn't, because I never wanted to watch it. But it's funny. Zil mentioned not really having watched a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I really grew up just watching the 80s cartoon for as long as I could, and then I don't know, the new cartoons never grabbed me ever, and that because as far as I'm concerned, they've never made a good enough theme song to match the energy of the 80s one. Never.
Interesting.
Ever. I can't. I think when they brought it back the first time in the early 2000s, I really didn't like the theme song. I felt like they were... it felt like the kind of theme song that was saying hey, remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? You like this, don't you? Which I didn't want.
To be fair, and then the third and fourth cartoons basically took the original 87 theme song and reused it for their own purposes.
I gotta check that one out later. But yeah, that's whenever I think of it, that's the one song that I think of first and foremost.
And that's entirely fair. It's either that or Ninja Rap, I'm sure.
Ninja Rap's good. I think it's fun. I like it.
It's fun. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's lay some groundwork for this franchise then. I mentioned earlier that this was founded in 1984 by then Mirage Studios, the co-creators Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman. They had their ideas running along with their own comic books and came up with this wacky concept, which, no joke, was originally a parody of Marvel's Daredevil.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
You can find the very first issue readily online fairly easily. It used to be on the main Turtles website. That's since Nickelodeon bought it out. That's no longer true. But no, this is meant to be a parody of Daredevil. Literally, it opens in New York City with a canister of chemicals that bounces out of a truck and hits a young man in the head, to later then bounce down to the sewers for the Turtles. That young guy is straight up supposed to be Matt Murdock.
That's so good to know. I love knowing
so
that.
So good.
And from there, they just keep either paying homage or parodying the elements of Daredevil, because the foot in the TMNT franchise is a parody of the hand in Daredevil, which was a ninja clan.
Yeah, that much I actually knew.
Yep.
But I didn't know that straight up from the beginning. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was just like a goof on Daredevil.
Kind of where they started. Splinter is a parody of Stick from Daredevil, which was apparently one of Daredevil's teachers. I'm not nearly as familiar with the Daredevil lore there. But the other thing to take away with the original comic is that this was dark from the start. This has always been meant to be an adult franchise, or until the 87 cartoon really turned into a kid property. Because in that first issue, those turtles kill people. Like, Leo uses those swords for all they're worth.
Oh, yeah. Good. That's fun. But for people that also aren't aware, and I don't know if I'm cutting ahead, but that's just like one of the many things that got turned into like a kid's show really awkwardly. Like RoboCop and Toxic Avenger and so many other things that you're just like, really? You're making a kid's cartoon of this? Fucking Beetlejuice, too? Beetlejuice had a great cartoon that I like, but that's not for kids.
Oh, it's worse than you know, because RoboCop had 2 different cartoons. Rambo had a cartoon.
I forgot about that. That's so bad.
Rambo had a cartoon?
Very brief one. Yeah, it didn't last long, more than a season.
God.
But some of the most bloody properties from the 70s and 80s got turned into kids' fodder. So.
Wow.
Just enough violence to keep the kids hooked. Bloodlust.
Yep. I mean, I can remember in the early 90s when Alien, the franchise, was turned into action figures. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's like kill the monster, and that's all you really need to attract kids for like action adventure type shit. I mean, just look at Aliens. Aliens changed the entire tone of that entire storyline, and it's the one that sticks with a lot of people. And for good reason. It's a great movie, but it is very different. So it's fun to see, in a way, like just how crazy it got, where people just wanted to take these concepts that are chilling and, you know, not supposed to be for kids, and just be like, hey, you want to have fun, kid? You want to have an adventure? Here, pick up this turtle, and don't worry about the swords. They only cut robots.
I mean, we joke, but in the original cartoon, that's why the foot soldiers were robots. So
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
It's very clear. There were a lot of decisions like that made for cartoons. That's why Spider-Man had certain roles that I really enjoyed knowing about.
Spider-Man couldn't punch people. That's what makes me laugh about that. In the 94 cartoon, like the very famous one. He wasn't allowed to punch people.
He wasn't allowed to punch
wild.
He wasn't allowed to punch people, and they weren't allowed to open fire on him without yelling, "It's Spider-Man" or "Spider-Man." They have to yell that they have acknowledged his existence, so that they didn't want kids to think that the bad guys were shooting at them. Not kidding.
So,
wow.
Back, if you don't mind me, back to the original comic.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Here. So, the original comic, like I said, not only is it pretty dark, but it set the tone here, especially the whole transformation piece, which is what we're here to talk about. But ultimately, we find out the turtles themselves, the origins here, are semi-alien in nature. We have an alien species called the Utrom, who better get recognized as the Krang in modern day. But these guys were much more benevolent than Krang became. But the mutagen was a waste product of their machinery, basically trying to bilk it home. And wasn't anything terribly special about it. It's just that they lost a canister, and it just happened to collide into these 4 turtles and a rat. So, but the series, ultimately, we're going to talk about mutagen as it comes out for the series. It's also called ooze. But where this really gets interesting into the whole transformation point is, A, how does this happen? And B, what are the larger implications here? So, as far as my entry into the franchise, like a lot of people who just turned 40 last year, good times, I was introduced to it just before kindergarten by someone else who had the action figures, and of course it got turned into a cartoon, and there we go. So, I still really enjoy this franchise, although I admit we're not going to talk about every entry in the franchise. We'll talk about most in brief. But I still enjoy this franchise to the point I own G1 and G3 cartoons on DVD.
Damn. Okay.
So, and I own a fair chunk of at least the IDW comic book, which is the current running one.
And honestly, it's good that you have. Sorry, go ahead.
You're first.
Well, I was just gonna say it's good that you own it physically, because I feel like every day we're learning about the perils of having things digitally. So good on you for having the physical copies, because God knows the digital versions,
And Nickelodeon is recognizing that, like, even fans of G2 and G4, they want this on DVDs. You can actually buy the 2003 run on DVD right now in a combined format, which hasn't never happened before the last couple of years.
Wow.
Okay.
That's mostly based on fan input, like, we want to give you money, can you give us what we want, kind of thing.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Libra?
No, I was just going to say, like, how do you feel about the IDW run so far? Because I don't know how it's going, but I know they're doing great with other things that I like.
So there were like over 150 issues, so that could be a whole podcast in itself. Largely, I love I dropped off the IDW. I have had to come back and reread, but loved it. It's kind of like, it came out at the same time about the 2012 cartoon on Nickelodeon, and it was being penned by one of the original co-creators, and it's really good. Balancing both the original super dark origins with modern sensibilities.
Hell yeah.
Okay, good to know.
To give you an idea of why I got interested in the comic, is I was in my regular comic shop, and I saw issue 25, which had a Leonardo clad in footwear and a black bandana leading the foot. And I'm like, oh, I have to know what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And literally at the end of that issue, they introduce their version of Bebop and Rocksteady. I'm like, oh, you have sold yourself.
And we know how famous those two are in our wonderful circles because of a certain movie, but I know we'll get to that later.
So, back to the original Mirage comics, it's surprisingly lacking in the mutant count. It's not more than about a dozen. Mm-hmm. So, where it lacks in mutant count, though, it has in gravitas. Like, the four boys certainly have different approaches in dealing with their status. Rav is frustrated with a whole lot, leading to anger. Mikey takes solace in humor. Donnie in technology. Leo, spirituality and training, which becomes the pattern for the rest of the franchise.
Yeah.
So, the original Mirage comics had 4 volumes, believe it or not. And they did gracefully, largely end. Not great in the emotional front. Even if because April's a whole other story, what they did with her. As well as when they unceremoniously killed off Splinter with a heart attack, only to find out that's not really Splinter because fan pushback was hard. But ultimately, where this series ends is the Turtles are allowed to enter the public eye because the aliens who made the Utroms, go public. And
okay.
Yeah, it kind of ends to the point where they've been through a lot, but they can exist as recognized people. So
that's honestly a really nice kind of ending to some degree, because I mean, so much of it is spent like worrying over, how to navigate being in the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but like I said, the mutant count here is actually fairly small. Certainly the 4 boys, Splinter, Leatherhead, who is this recurring Gator character, the Shredder clones, because that's a thing, is certainly there. Yeah. Funny story about Shredder, he is very much the Joker of the franchise, where he's not only the most iconic villain, he was meant to be created and consumed and never be seen again, but fans loved him so much, he's still the main series villain today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original Joker appearance, that was supposed to be his one and only issue, and now he's Batman's most iconic villain.
I didn't know that, actually, that he was supposed to be like a one-off.
And then there's also, again, a couple other one-off villains, like Bloodsucker, who is terrifying. Like, I've read synopsis of the issues. I haven't actually read issues of itself, but he's a giant mutant leech who steals mutagen from the mutants he goes after. Yeah.
Okay.
Damn.
So the series would have stayed largely to the comic book had Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman basically, when the comic book itself took off really well, they started getting franchising rights to other media. Yeah. And one thing that is often criticized, and I'm not going to criticize it because it made them money, but one of the things that thrown at Laird and Eastman is that they basically said if someone approached them about making a thing with the Turtles' face on it, they pretty much rubber stamped it, and didn't have terribly much input into what then that licensee did.
Right. So it's very loosey-goosey with it.
So if you've ever wondered why there was that terrible Turtles banned on stage bit, that's why.
Okay.
A lot of things are starting to make sense now.
Mm-hmm. Now, Eastman and Laird did exert a lot of control over like the actual movies, which we will get to, but this is why the series just blew up in just a number and activity is just because it was just suddenly everywhere.
Yeah.
So, one thing to know about Mirage, like I said, it does go into the gravitas because these are, even the heroes can't really live in open society until almost the very end.
Yeah.
And each of them deals with that in their own time. And the series did start most with further gravitas we'll touch on, but Splinter started as a rat. A very long-lived rat at that, but a rat who learned ninjutsu from his cage. Now, further versions of this franchise will use that or not in their own ways, but something to keep in mind is we're going to talk about the whole TF thing.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's part and parcel of why you're here, right?
Yeah. So, what was your guys' first exposure to this franchise?
My first impression?
Good question.
Just how did you first see it?
Oh, the cartoon. That's it. It showed up on TV. I watched it. It was fun. I wanted to keep watching it. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think for me, my first exposure, I'm pretty sure it was the oh my goodness, the second animated series, because it was the one by 4Kids, I think.
Yes.
And that was the one that was generally on television when I was of more that age of like, wanting to consume it and stuff. I think it was like, I want to say it was like around 2000, I think, or something like that. I don't remember exact years.
Yeah.
Oh, 3. Okay.
Yep.
There you go. Yeah. That was my first exposure to it. And I liked it. And I think one of the things that stood out, at least for me, was, I mean, anthropomorphic animals doing cool shit. That was like my jam. Yeah. I wonder what this means. But I really like.
There's an entire TV tropes category. Teenage Mutant Samurai Wombats. It used to be just called Superhero Mutant Team. TV tropes renamed it, but that basically not only covers the Turtles, but every imitator they had, which is considerable.
The one thing that always stood out to me, at least in terms of like obviously I enjoyed watching it, but there were two things that stood out to me. One was that Donatello was voiced by
Barry Gordon. Or are you thinking of
No, it was Sam Riegel. It was Sam Riegel who is doing the voice, who has a very iconic voice, and Donatello is great. And also, Ash was April. Veronica Taylor was doing the voice for that one, so that one was also very distinct to me. But I really enjoyed that, and then I dipped into the franchise like in and out afterwards. So
fair enough. So let's get into where the franchise blew up, and where we do have questions here of gravitas. The G1 cartoon, 1987. Started, the very first season is the quote-unquote pilot, 5 episodes long, but hoo boy, did this one play loose and fast with things. A lot. So, the mutagen is never given a proper origin. We know it's from Dimension X, but Shredder and the other villains learn to synthesize it here on Earth. There's a couple different color variants of it, just depends on the episode. But the most consistent thing we see do, and which becomes pretty much the standard from here on out, is that for feral animals, it tends to give them humanoid status pretty reliably.
Yes.
For humans, you get combined with the last animal you physically touched.
Oh.
So sometimes with ferals, it's a human being was the last touch them, Splinter and the boys.
Yeah.
But that's not always true. There's later mutants in the series that don't get touched by humans. They get mutagen thrown on them, and now they're anthropomorphic.
Interesting.
With humans, it's almost always this last secondary DNA they touched.
Yeah.
The rare time it's not, you get someone like Mutagen Man, who, even though he was a one-and-done episode character, because that one is a unique case where he didn't have secondary DNA, and it basically turned him inside out.
Oh, Jesus. I don't think I know who this character is. I'm going to have to look this up while we're talking.
He's had a few incarnations himself, and the 87 one is the most benign because it ends happily for him. He uses what's mutagen in his system to basically make himself human again, only prettier. Yeah. So his 2012 counterparts and comic book counterparts have a lot more tragedy. Yeah,
this is pretty gnarly looking, I gotta say. I'd never seen this one before, and I'm like, whew.
I love it.
That guy's unlucky.
This one, aside from maybe the G4 cartoon, with G1, we have probably the most volume of mutants. And this should sound familiar to anyone who's watched an action figure property in the 80s or 90s, but Playmates, the main action figure maker, was rushing ahead of the franchise and made their own mutants that the series would later have to basically reintroduce into the canon, if at all. So the Playmates action figures have a lot of mutants out there that never made it to the show, but the show was also basically pulling the best out of them to be characters.
Wow. So it wasn't even like the traditional 80s sort of like character to toy time pipeline. They were literally trying to reverse engineer it.
Pretty much.
Wow.
Like, there is a kangaroo mutant out there called Walkabout in the 80s line that never made it to the show.
I'm so sorry.
That's fine. It's fine. But it's hardly the only one. And Walkabout's kind of ugly, honestly. If I'm being perfectly
Yeah, he's not much of a looker, honestly. Now that I'm looking, I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah. But other characters like Dirtbag or Groundchuck, like, yeah, they were action figures first and became show characters after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's very interesting how merchandising has affected a lot of media that we grew up with and have been fond with and all that kind of stuff. And it's led sometimes to shockingly positive reception, stuff that actually made for really interesting stuff and good media. And then of course there's the times that it has just like ruined a bunch of stuff. But it's happened to a lot of shows.
So, gravitas of the game, or of this cartoon. Splinter is human turned mutant. Now, compared to other versions of the character we will see later, he is probably at the most peace with himself about this. It's said that, yeah, he'd like to be human again, but he doesn't really consider it a overriding priority. Early episodes kind of really implied that he wanted to be human again, and that's what he wanted to do, like especially that Pilot 5 set. But later on, he was cool. He was cool being a rat. So there was also one-off episodes where, like, maybe Mikey wanted to be a human, and he'd forget about it by the end of the episode. Or Bebop and Rocksteady started human, but stayed mutant, never really voicing them wanting to return to human later on.
Mm-hmm.
And then poor April, this version of the franchise, she got turned mutants way too many times. Like, probably at least 3.
I was gonna say, I think that ended up being the TF entry fuel for a number of people.
Offhand, I can remember at least three times. I want to say a cat, a fish, maybe one other, and it wasn't April. It was her coworkers Irma and Vernon that usually were the next guinea pigs. Surprisingly, never happened to Shredder. But, he's kind of like series main bad, so... Very late in the franchise, they tried to introduce a human character called Carter, who had a actually non-human animal mutation. But he was dropped after Season 9 because the fan base hated him. So, there you go.
It's interesting. It feels like there was a lot of, like... How do I phrase this? It definitely sounds like, in a number of cases... The franchise itself was extremely responsive to fan feedback, which, your mileage may vary when it comes to various franchises and listening to their fans. But it's interesting how much like it feels like it came up in the early days, perhaps, especially when the franchise was probably starting to kind of find its own identity and assert itself.
And especially come later seasons, because this was a 10-season show. Come later seasons, like, they tried to revamp this to be much more like Batman the Animated Series and darker, and no one was watching by that point.
Yeah. A prelude to its cancellation.
Yep.
Well, so, I got curious and was looking for all the times that April got turned into something. Mm-hmm. Somebody uploaded a 8.5-minute video about it. And it's not as many as I would have thought over the years, but it was the cat, the fish, like you mentioned. She got turned into a wasp monster. That's fun. She apparently also turned into a demon of some kind and a turtle, but that was in like other media. But those first 3, the wasp, the fish, and the cat, were all from the 80s cartoon. The demon looked really cool though.
Oh, this is not the last time we'll play with her getting transformed into something. to be certain. But
Oh, yeah.
this is the one where it happens the most often because, I mean, she's the 5th character who's the most visible, so... And...
The Wasp Mutant one is so cool. Sorry, continue.
That's fine. But yeah, like I said, there wasn't a lot of gravitas here because characters would come and go. So, and the most we got was Splinter, originally human, but that's about it. So, If you like mutants, and Transformation, this is probably one of the best cartoons for that.
Yeah. Did they have a lot of, was there a lot of mutants stuff in the movies that were coming out around that time? Because if I recall correctly,
yes and no.
Some of the movies overlapped with that.
So, definitely, the original cartoon and the 90s 3 informed on each other, to be certain. They would influence each other because Taka and Razor from the 90s movies made it to the cartoon, eventually.
Oh.
And the whole reason we have Taka and Razor in the first place is the producers of the movies wanted to do Bebop and Rocksteady, but that's one of the few instances where Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman were like, no, we're not.
Yeah.
They wanted the movie continuity very different.
Okay. Do you like that they went for something different with the movie continuity?
I'm of two minds. One, I actually agree with Peter and Laird. Like, that's actually a better idea because, especially the very first movie, it's a much better version of the core story.
Yeah.
At the same time, the child in me would have seeing Bebop and Rocksteady on the big screen, that would have been so cool. But even as Jim Henson's Creature Shop, as good as they were at the time, probably for the best.
Yeah.
What we did get, Taka and Razor, were pretty good. So.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure. Even now, I look back on it, and I'm still pretty fond of those movies. And
third one can be a little hard to watch, but yeah, just because it's a little cringy. But
I mean, what franchise hasn't produced things that were a little cringy at some point? You know.
Yep. But it's still a lot of fun. So let's talk about those original 90s movies. Now, this stays far closer to the original comics, especially that very first movie. Like, that first 1990 movie is one of the best versions of this. Not only does it blend the cartoon, but it definitely has the darker nature of the original comic without actually killing anyone.
Right.
With the exception of Casey Jones smushing Shredder in the back of the garbage truck at the very end. Like a sociopath. So... But hey,
that is pretty fucked up, I gotta say. That's not one of the ways I would want to go. So.
Oh my god! I'm just referring to as Casey's "oops," and he pulls the lever. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, Jesus.
I mean, yeah, Casey Jones has always been meant to be the angrier sociopath, bigger than Wrath.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But the first movie doesn't do much with the TF concept, other than just introduce it as the mechanism that made Turtles in the Splinter. That's it.
Right.
We see the original canister, and it's literally just labeled radioactive material. And the first movie is pretty much, these are the only mutants we have, is Splinter and the Four Boys, which is totally fine. Splinter is much more frail in this one, and kind of recognizes that he's an old rat. He was an old rat when they fell into the goop. So he knows he's not going to be around for long, and that's kind of the framing thing of that first movie, is that he's trying to prep his boys for the day he kicks it.
Right.
So Leo, Don, and Mikey are pretty okay with the outside world, but it's Raph who's notably the angry one, which reflects the original comic. Raph is kind of a sociopath in the original comic, so in his own right. To the point that's what I mean when Casey Jones is the bigger one. That's saying something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can always go deeper. If you think you've hit rock bottom, you probably haven't.
No. Second movie is where the gravitas is turned up, and we see more mutants, where we find out where the mutagen came from, which is just an industrial waste in a scientific and industrial company called TGRI. Basically, Star Labs from DC Comics, for all its members. There's actually cut elements from the original script that was going to use the Utrom origin, but they were cut out. Mm-hmm. The Utrom was supposed to be largely the scientist guy, Dr. Jordan Perry, who you see in the main portions of the movie. So if you go back and watch it, you can kind of see where this would have led, but they cut all of that out. Probably because they didn't have to depict a brain in a robot's stomach.
Keeping it kid-friendly, right?
Oh, this one was deliberately made more kid-friendly. Like, Mikey doesn't really use the nunchucks very often.
Yeah.
On purpose.
That is a shame.
Leo still has the swords, but you can count on one hand how many times he uses them.
These people underestimate what kids can handle, honestly.
It's PG because it requires parental guidance. And if your parents can't guide you, that's their fault, okay?
Yeah. Where I love this one for gravitas is where the first movie is very much Raphael's movie. Like, he's the core turtle to follow. Mm-hmm. And the other three do contribute. Donnie probably the least. But the second movie is Donatello's, first and foremost. Like, yeah, because he's having moments of crisis because he's finding out how this all happened. And when he finds out it was just a random accident of industrial waste, he's actually thrown, like, for a genuine crisis that Splinter has to talk him out of.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny also. Yeah. I just think it's funny because I would think that somebody like that enjoys knowing the truth. And Donatello is supposed to be the thinker, the scientist, pretty much. And scientists are typically characterized as being people who just like knowing the truth, you know, at whatever cost when you come to the mad scientist thing. But, you know, having an existential crisis of like, oh no, I was an accident, and then like, that's pretty sad. But also brings the teenage part in. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to forget that they're teenagers and that they actually have a lot to learn. It's so easy to forget that. I forget it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it gets glossed over quite a bit, honestly.
So, and then unfortunately the third and fourth movie in this one, third is the one where they travel in time. And the fourth one deals with demons? But there is no TF, like, at all in movies 3 and 4.
Shaking my head.
The oozes was a thing for the second movie, and that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Pretty much the last mutant we see is the freaking Super Shredder at the very end. So, what we really don't know, though, is what the mutagens rules are compared to the other ones in the franchise that kind of define what it's supposed to do.
Mm. Yeah, they don't give it much of a definition, it sounds like.
Nope. Just if you touch it, things happen.
Incredible. Where's the lore? Where's the building? Come on.
Like, and remember, I like these movies. I think these movies the first two are like some of the best in the entire franchise.
Oh, yeah.
They don't do as much as lore as you'd think they would.
Well, they don't need to, right? They're entertaining. You love them because of all the stuff that happens in it. You know, you love it because of what the characters go through and everything like that. If you had to spend like 15 minutes, collectively or otherwise, figuring out the ooze and its properties and the rules, you know, you could fuck that up real easy. Especially like in the span of just a movie or two.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that goes into Zill's entry, the 2003 cartoon.
Yes.
So this one, again, more goes back towards comic origins, where mutagen is an Utron product, Splinter is a rat turned mutant instead of human turned rat, and Splinter himself actually had a lot of adventures before the series even chronologically started. So we don't get near the mutant list that we did back in G1, but mutants do show up quite a bit. Because other people can use the ooze. There's also, quote, what they call gray mutants, which are largely unintelligent and violent monsters. So,
I do remember that.
Yeah, this one does cross over with G1 in the very entertaining Turtles Forever movie, where they play more with the original '87 cartoons rules of mutations, but. One of the things with the Grey Mutants, we do see that they're largely innocent parties, but the biggest thing I'd like to call through here, one of the best storylines that deals with the gravitas of mutation that's uncontrolled is the very, 3-4 episode storyline where Donatello is hit by a secondary mutation that turns him into an absolute feral monster. And the remaining turtles, Splinter, and they have to call on Leatherhead for help, realize they don't know what to do without him.
I remember that TF sequence.
Where he basically is a T-Rex with a turtle shell on the back.
Yeah, it's hilarious, honestly. Like, from a character design perspective, very funny. But also, from a story perspective, it was quite well done. Mm-hmm.
Technically, that's what Bowser is anyway. People like him.
That's true. That is true, and I am a fan of Bowser, so there you go.
So, secret origin for Bowser confirmed.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
You just the ooze spilled somewhere else in Brooklyn, and shit went off the walls when he fell into a pipe and started mutating.
I mean, it explains a great deal.
Yep,
I mean, why is he so much bigger than the average Koopa Troopa?
Yep.
And how can he asexually reproduce to have Bowser Jr. and the 7 other Koopalings?
Exactly. Like, it's not adding up, right? Like, I don't know.
This one, again, 2003 isn't my favorite only because I fell in love with 2012 so much more. But
Yeah.
it's good. Up until it's like last season or two when the writing started to really peter out. Yeah, it's one of the better ones out there. But
yeah.
we see decent number of mutants. We just don't see really... like I said, there isn't largely that large gravitas of, oh crap, I'm now something different.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a shame. I would have liked them to have explored it more in that one. But it sounds like, at the very least, they seem to have explored it more in G1 and G3 to some degree.
G3 is my favorite version of the franchise, bar none. So, and this one came out in 2012, was CGI'd, and it was the showrunner was Ciro Neely, who, if you're a cartoon fan, I hope that name sounds familiar because this guy has been on a number of good cartoons over the years as either staff writer or artist. Like, very briefly, tangent here, he helmed Disney's Super Robot... God damn it, I can never say this right. Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go. That's it. Look it up. Make sure I got it right.
Yeah.
And that series is just acts crazy and actually a lot of fun.
Yeah,
But he was also on more conventional stuff like Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. So when Nickelodeon bought up the franchise, the entirety of Mirage Studios, and thus the franchise, away from Kevin and Peter, he was like first in line with his story Bible already written to basically sell Nickelodeon on this version of the cartoon, and I am so glad that they bit. So G3, like I said, it's a CGI one, but it is probably the best one to combine everything we've got to that point. Not only the G1 cartoon, which gets referenced and even crossed over with, elements of G2, the original comic, and done with not only kids in mind, because they are trying to sell toys, this is what this franchise does,
Yeah.
but a lot of respect for what came before while doing its own thing.
That is the good thing about a lot of media. The fun thing about a lot of media is that the creative people still want to do things that are entertaining. It's hard to find a product that is pure, like a product. I can call it a product because it was supposed to be that, but purely cynical. When you have a bunch of creative people trying to make something, they still want to make something fun. So it's great that it was able to shine through enough that there was actually something to appreciate, aside from just moving toys and stuff. I guess in some ways that's a little better because then you can kind of break out of something rather than trying to contain it. Because if you have a vision and it gets squashed by product placement, merchandise, and things like that, that's kind of worse, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And because I think, okay, there's one Gundam series that the first 5 episodes were released in the improper order. And the reason it was released that way was because the executives wanted to make sure that the Gundam itself, the titular Gundam, would show up in the first episode because they wanted to sell model kits. But it meant throwing the first 5 episodes in a completely erratic order that made the story extremely hard to follow. So that was pretty shitty. But, that even without that 5-episode shuffle, that show was really, really bad anyway. It's Victory Gundam, by the way. If you disagree with me, you can fight me. But yeah, that kind of thing can really smother a vision. So it's fun. Try to subvert the whole we're gonna sell toys with this and be like, let's make something nice, let's make something good. It doesn't have to be shit.
Actually,
right?
It's funny you mentioned Gundam because complete squirrel here, but there was one 6 months ago that was released on Netflix that does not take place from we're talking mainline Gundam, not After Colony or anything like the main.
Yeah, Universal Century.
Thank you. But it's not from the side of where the normal army where Gundam shows up. It's from the Zaku's. And we see a Gundam on that when the Gundam shows up, it is terrifying.
Oh yeah, Requiem for Vengeance. That's the
that
one.
I watched it and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it sometime. It seems good. If you want something of a similar perspective, look into Gundam Thunderbolt. But yes, back to Turtles. Even though there are these very expensive premium toys of the Turtles that are pretty much like Gundam-esque Turtles, and I think Michelangelo really resembles Heavy Arms, and it's great.
So this version of the franchise, like I said, blends everything together. The mutagen, the ooze, is from Dimension X. It is not only originally an Utrom product, but there's also Splinter, the evil faction, the Krang. So there's two of these factions guys running around. And the Krang are the main bad guys. They want to bring it to Earth, but they realized between Dimension X and our own planet, like, the chemical and physical laws literally change between dimensions. So while the Utroms and Krang are at literal civil war, the Krang are trying to bring it to Earth to terraform Earth, to a planet that would suit them.
Okay.
And it doesn't work as cleanly as, like I said, the Krang like it to, so we kind of go back to that same pattern as G1. Basically, the less secondary DNA that you touch becomes what you turn into.
Right.
So where things differ, that in this version, usually when G1, if you got mutated, you got stronger or better intellect. That doesn't always happen here. Not only does Mutagen Man come back in a very tragic way, we'll talk about him, there is much more like, when people get changed into a mutant, it can be really bad for them. Like, some of them, some of just the average criminals, like, literally the first episode is Snakeweed, who is a plant mutant. And he's a little upset that he's a walking plant now.
I mean, I would be upset too, honestly. Like, of all the things you could get, especially if you see, like, cool animal people running around, you got plant, I'd be annoyed.
He's a carnivorous plant, I'll give him that. Sort of.
Yeah.
But he could be like the End and photosynthesize and be able to stay in the sun for weeks on end until he could snipe his target. See? Yeah. See? You can. You can make something out of being a plant.
Yep. But it gets into some pretty deep gravitas because, again, Splinter is human turned rat, and he's not dealing well with this. There are some most of his episodes he appears outside content with what he has now. We find out in series he lost a lot of his life back in Japan before coming to America. His wife, his daughter, his entire clan were burned down by Shredder, who was his adopted brother, no less. And where he stands now, even his humanity is taken from him at one point.
Yeah.
So, he does deal with it in his own way, but there's clear evidence of depression. And the Four Boys are still the Four Boys. They are dealing with this, but there's generally more good than bad there. So, yeah. There's also... we see a number of Shredder's minions who become mutants. Like, they're not... Some of them are actually okay with it, some of them are not. Like, ironically, Baxter Stockman, the Fly guy from G1, he's back in here. He liked being a mutant because he was cooler that way than just being a scientist that everyone picked on.
Oh, okay. Huh.
And then there's two newcomers to the series, Tiger Claw and Allopux, siblings who now hate each other. They're human assassins turned mutants. And Bebop and Rocksteady are returned to the franchise after their human side is introduced for a number of episodes. Like, they are their own characters.
Oh.
And
so their turn is not necessarily expected, so to speak, when they first show up.
No, we don't know that they're Bebop and Rocksteady until they're turned into the mutants. They're literally Anton something and Ivan Starenko. One is a professional thief, the other is Shredder's weapon supplier.
That's right.
Shredder mutates them to punish them when they fail too often. So after that, they are a little upset with their boss.
Yeah, I'd be at least a little bit upset if I was, most people would be upset in that situation. Right.
And then Shredder's first loyal second-in-command, Chris Bradford, is mutated twice. First into Dog Pound, and then later Razar, this series version of it. And he's much more with Razar because he feels like a ninja again instead of this clumsy mutant, but yeah, it's kind of horrific when it happens. Because one of the rules established in this version is that you touch the mutagen once, you turn into a mutant, and it could go bad or good for you. Yeah, Mutagen Man we haven't talked about yet, but You touch it again, things go worse a lot fast. Like, you don't change back to what you were, you further mutate, and that can really go bad.
Yeah.
So, and then Mutagen Man. I keep mentioning him, but this is the tragic version of that character, where we have a random guy who tries to be a hero without putting in the work to, become a martial artist, and deliberately dumps mutagen on himself to try to change himself to a mutant to be an ally to the Turtles, and he has no secondary DNA. It turns him inside out. And Donnie feels incredibly guilty for it.
Yeah, that's a brutal turn. Like, not gonna lie, like, you're trying to help these guys out, and then that happens to you? Yeah, I'd be fucked up.
It is fucked up. Yep. Mutagen Man is actually later, like, he's put on literal ice, and then the series just kind of stops referring to him by the end. So, we don't know if Donnie ever managed to cure him.
Yeah.
So, Donatello does make a retro mutagen that basically can undo some of the mutants created over time. So, But then there is Karai / Miwa. So, Karai is, for those of you who don't know who Karai is, she is another foot officer, a female one who showed up in the original comic. Had nothing to do with Shredder, she was just trying to put order to chaos, but in later versions of the franchise, she becomes like Shredder's right hand. And that's what she is here. She's Splinter's daughter, who was not killed, stolen from him, and raised by his worst enemy.
Damn.
So there's all of that fun drama. And then when she learns the truth about her real father is, oopsie doopsie, thrown into the mutation tank. And she becomes a snake mutant.
I'm shocked I've never seen art of that. I don't think I've seen art of that before, and that sounds pretty, like, I don't know. I feel like there would be a through line there. I mean, people go off about Jasmine's snake transformation in the Aladdin series. I'm like, so why am I not hearing more snake babes? Like, what's going on here?
I mean,
also
she's
Disney famous.
She's 16. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Oh no, it doesn't make a difference to a lot of people. It does. They don't fucking care.
It should, though.
They don't fucking care, though. I know it should. I'm just saying they don't fucking care.
That's true.
In fact, that's probably one of the reasons that they lean into it even more. You know it's true.
Yeah,
so I'll drop an image of her in chat here, in her mutant form.
Yeah, that's cool. She looks like a Pokemon, though.
She does look like a Pokemon, I'm not gonna lie.
Like a regional Hydreigon type shit.
So, we even find April is a mutant herself, kind of. She's actually a Krang hybrid. She, for all intents and purposes, human on the outside, but she can actually survive in Dimension X on her own and has mental powers because she's a Krang mutant.
Interesting.
Okay.
But, yeah. So, like I said, this one is really good. Not only are we balancing some serious level writing with, oh crap, or oh great, I'm a mutant, but Mutagen is at least consistent.
Yeah. And we do love consistency with our lore. I definitely would never be interested in any series that play fast and loose with their lore and contradict everything from one entry to the next. Stares at Ratchet and Clank. Anyways, but don't worry about that.
Like I said, this one, not only did this one is my favorite, it lasted 5 seasons. Like 4 seasons is the core main plot, with the 5th season being extra stories that the writers got to tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one not only had a graceful ending, it has, and this is where spoilers for anyone who's not seen this one, unless you guys care. Right here, all I can stop
here.
Go for it. Remember how I mentioned back in the original Mirage comics that they unceremoniously killed off Splinter with a heart attack? That fan pushback was so hard, they were forced to reverse that?
Right.
Yes.
This cartoon kills off Splinter for good.
Oh, shit.
Twice,
okay.
So
twice? How do you kill someone off for good twice?
Time travel.
Oh my god.
Wait, is it the kind of thing where it's like, we have hope to maybe bring him back, and then you strip the hope away to like really push the knife in deeper?
Oh, kind of. So at the end of season 3, the literal Earth is at threat. Because the Triceratons, which we haven't mentioned, these are guys who are literally Triceratops mutants from outer space.
As
they're
one does.
a major threat, but they're not mutants in the normal sense. They have a black hole generator that's going to go off and kill the Earth, because their whole shtick is they hate the Krang that hard.
Right.
And it's one of the few times that the two major factions, the Foot and the Turtles, team up because the threat is that much greater. And in the final seconds before the bomb is about to go off, Shredder takes the opportunity to stab Splinter in the back, even if it sacrifices everything.
That's some serious hatred.
Yeah.
So before the boys and April and Casey are saved from the brink of annihilation on a spaceship piloted by a robot called the Fugitoid and time travel and voiced by David Tennant, so that's a thing.
Yeah.
Literally his own minions are calling Shredder out like, "You've just killed us." And you see the boys react to their father being murdered in front of them.
Yeah. Jeez.
So season 4 is all the time travel, and they fix this. Mm-hmm. So, but come the end of season 4, Shredder is that desperate, he gets mutated into Super Shredder, because thing. That, he ends up beating Splinter to death for good this time. And the boys can't stop him.
Mutating with?
He's just a bigger, uglier human. Like the Hulk. The Hulk.
Gotcha.
And the second time Splinter dies, they can't undo it. There's no way. So, the season 4 finale is the Turtles take the revenge. They kill Shredder for good.
Yeah.
So, I'm talking a children's cartoon is doing things that the original comic didn't have the stones to do.
It's pretty impressive. I will tip my hat at that at the very least, because it sounds like they really wanted to... there's some... I would almost argue there's an element of, shocking the audience to some degree, but clearly they were doing it with a point. They had a vision that they wanted to execute, which, again, I can respect.
Yep. So, like I said, there's a reason this one is my favorite. Dang!
Yeah, there's actual stakes to all this, and I love it when that's the case, because I want to be able to take it seriously. I think that there's... It's uniquely bad to know that there's a show that's going to always turn out the same way, especially when you want to care. And I know that some people think that's acceptable for children's media. It's not. It never is.
I wish more people understood that, honestly.
So, on that line, IDW comic. So, you want to know what my opinion was? This series is weird, but in the best of ways. The plot line is the most complex of any Turtles thing. Not only backstory, but where they go with it, but it's still good. It's also 150 issues long. So, you're in it for the long haul.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, this one, again, plot is most complex. Krang tries to invade the Earth for a long, long time, to the point of literally centuries before the mutagen of his species make. But that's not important, because the overall plot starts with Oroku Saki, Shredder, kills Hamato Yoshi, Tang Shen, and their 4 sons before his patron demigoddess, it's a thing, there's a bunch of patron demigods, tells him to confront Krang and steal the ooze. And Shredder does so, and basically allows him to live for effectively centuries, albeit in stasis, to be awakened by Krang in later present times. I need air. Later, in the modern day...
That was a mouthful.
Krang contracts Baxter Stockman to produce the ooze at scale and thus make Super Soldier with it, which leads to the 4 Turtles and Splinter, and April thus involvement because she's working in the lab at the time. However, after Splinter and the boys are mutated, they have somehow picked up the spirits of Hamato Yoshi and those 4 sons. Because why not? Reincarnation's a thing here.
Good.
So, the mutagen plays by slightly different rules, where on humans, it tends to be a healing and enhancement agent. But it can be modified to work with other DNA, leading to the more classical mutants we're familiar with. On animals, it tends to make them anthropomorphic, and we have a lot of mutants in this version of the franchise. So, there's not only the Splinter, the 4 boys, who, remember, their animals mutated into anthropomorphic with the spirits of humans, because why not?
Sure.
We also have a bunch of regular mutants basically get promoted to, or animals promoted into mutants. Right. And then one of them who's kind of morally gray, who's leader of an independent group called the Mutanimals, Old Hob, a cat mutant, he deliberately sets off a mutagen bomb in New York to create a massive group of mutants to the tune of thousands of New York residents that Splinter and the boys can walk around and be a part of without freaking out the populace because everybody's a mutant.
Right. I mean, that's pretty convenient, honestly.
Yep. We actually see the creation of more turtles, and it's we have new Jenica, who is a female turtle who got that way because she was human and got a emergency blood transfusion from Leonardo. So yeah, the gravitas of becoming a mutant and losing humanity is definitely explored in the series, and because it's 150 issues long, I don't have a lot of time to get into all of this. But yeah.
That would take forever. It's interesting how wild the plot is in that one. Like truly, I really gotta wonder how they came up with the storyline for that, because it's not just, oh, we're doing something slightly different for the sake of being slightly different. Like, no, they own that with their whole chest, and they made some choices.
Yep. And like I said, there are demigods running around.
Yeah, because why not?
You call the Pantheon. And no joke, with the Ghostbuster comics running at the same time, not only did they cross over, but one of the Pantheon ended up over there as a ghost that got captured.
Fantastic. I love that.
So yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, that is wild to me.
So, that leads us to the Bay Turtles movies.
Ah, yes, my favorite.
Thankfully, it's limited here. It's incredibly limited. It just plays by weird rules. Like, I'm not talking like weird, convoluted plot rules. No, weird. Just weird. So, the first movie starts it off with the ooze is a human radioactive product that April's late father and the not Shredder scientist bad guy were working on. And we don't know that it has any effect on humans, but it sure created the Turtles and Splinter. At least this green version of it. And its property, basically, we're told with humans, is that it's basically back to in Star Wars. It will basically heal humans from pretty much anything.
Okay.
And the only notable plot point in here, besides everything I just mentioned, was instead of treating the turtles like the literal golden gooses that they should be, they decide they're going to kill them and extract the mutagen. All of it. Because bad guys.
Okay. Sure. Right.
So, I mean, I think it tracks because you have Splinter being killed at the expense of, everybody dying. So sure, why not? Let's have people who are just going to, instead of capturing them and bleeding them for as long as they can, they're just going to be like, nah, let's just take it all now. People can be evil and have an idea and then be bad at it. They do it all the time.
Yep. And the movie has so many plot threads and questions that are like, wait, what? Because the bad guy's plot is to release basically anthrax from a central New York tower, because people won't notice that, and that's the mutagen is going to be their cure. They're going to sell back to the public.
That's such a wild choice, truly.
Yeah,
they should have just went with the religious fanaticism that Bloodborne used. That would have definitely worked better.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and minor correction, Splinter does live through this. He gets pretty banged up by their version of the Shredder, but, he's got literal Bacta built in. He's fine. He's fine. So the second movie throws literally all of that out. And now
so they did a big old retcon?
No, not retcon. They just want you to forget about the green ooze because now there's a purple version that has completely different rule sets.
Right, of course. Obviously.
So the purple mutagen comes from the now Krang to give to Shredder to make super soldiers and make a few minions on, and this is our Bebop and Rocksteady. And this one will randomly just turn humans into a mutant without secondary DNA by just shooting it into you. And with really bad dialogue that says it just reactivates dead genome sequence in the human code that are somehow a warthog and a rhino.
See what I mean? They could have spent time explaining what the ooze was in the movies, but that could have happened. Then you wouldn't have liked the movies as much.
Otherwise we won't get penis jokes from Bebop and Rocksteady. For the kids.
Oh, for the kids, of course. But we did get a TF scene.
You did. A straight up, it's CGI, but it's Bebop and Rocksteady being TF'd.
Okay, good.
Just saying. It was the one thing, in my opinion, it was like one of the few good things that the movies gave us. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to criticize too much the lore because it did give me that, and I will be thankful for that.
So there is one other point with the purple stuff. Apparently, used on an existing mutant, it can turn them human while they don't lose their inner selves. So basically, the boys have an out to be human.
That's fucking wild to me. Like, how does that even make sense? But okay, sure.
It doesn't. Now, this is where the movie is both utterly brilliant and utterly stupid, because the story actually begins with Mikey's own disillusionment, and Mikey's the hardest character to write for, because he goes out on Halloween to be around humans with no one caring who he is, because it's Halloween.
Ah, yes, a familiar trope. I've definitely never encountered that before, ever.
So, of course, the humans realize he's not human, and they turn angry on him, and you actually see his disillusionment. And Splinter has to, like, comfort him. And I'm like, you know what? Credit where credit is due. That was really well written.
Yeah.
It gets stupid real quick after that. Because after Donnie figures out what the purple stuff can do, they steal it away, or April does. Leo orders him to keep it from the other two brothers for no good reason.
Oh, Jesus.
And of course, when Raph and Mikey logically find out about it and confront him about it, Leo is more worried that his team cohesion and he'll lose his brothers than the free choice to make, hey, do we want to do this or not? He's more worried about, oh, I'm going to lose my brothers than, hey, maybe we should make our own decisions? Which leads immediately to Raph making a decision for all of them and smashes it against the wall.
Cool. Because no one else apparently is allowed to make a decision. Just rob their agency. Michael Bay writing.
Yeah. Like I said, the movie can be utterly brilliant when it wanted to be, and now it's not.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got Bebop and Rocksteady with...
We did.
Transforming, and probably a few more ass shots than you'd expect because their clothes run low. So, because...
Again, not complaining.
Butt jokes for the kids.
It was very much a kids' movie. Very much. That whole thing was just for kids, obviously.
Truth be told, this movie feels more like an episode of the 87 cartoon, just stretched out.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I can see where you're coming from with that.
So, are they good? No. Are they tolerable? Yes.
Sometimes tolerable is all you need, I guess.
I would literally watch these over the Turtles in Time 90s movie. 100%.
Okay, that's fair. That is fair.
I mean, if it's entertaining, that's really the hook. If it's fun.
Yeah.
So that leaves just the G4 cartoon, which is as far as I've gone in this franchise. You'll notice I didn't talk about the Archie or Image comics because I haven't read them. So, and I'm not, at least for the space of this podcast, I'm not going to go throw through all of that canon.
Yeah, exactly.
And then before, if anyone's curious, have I seen the most recent movie and the cartoon that came out with it? Movie, yes. Cartoon, barely. I'm kind of reserving judgment there, and maybe we can do a follow-up episode, but for now, no. I don't want to talk. We're not going to talk through that one.
Yeah, which is fair.
So G4 is probably the first entry in the franchise to really... Not only do they derail from what you expect, but they're committing to it, and it's actually pretty good. And I was very unfair to this version of the franchise when it first came out. Mostly for their depiction of Splinter. Instead of the wise old, like, wise master, he is, like, more like your man-child dad who walks around in his underwear all the time.
Right.
That's kind of where he is in this franchise. And it took a couple of episodes for me to get used to it, and it's hilarious in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
What sold me on Splinter in this one was he steals the turtle van for his own joyride. And the boys are chasing him.
Oh my god. Okay, I mean, that is... I gotta tip my hat at that at least, because that's at least funny.
Yeah. Literally, Splinter and one of the semi-bad guys, a mutant pig called Meat Sweats, steal the van for a joyride just to have fun. And the boys think it's a more serious thief, and then when they realize it's their own father, they are that much angrier.
Yeah.
So, like I said, different tack. They really changed the franchise, the core formula here. Raphael is the team commander, and that changes how things work out. It really does. It lets Leo not be the stick up his ass character for once.
Yeah. Did you come to appreciate that dynamic more than some of the past dynamics, or
honestly,
was it just kind of a fresh update?
It's more of a fresh update. So it's kind of good.
Nice.
So in this version, we have about a number of factions running around here, and they're all hilarious in their own right. There's the Foot Clan, who they're not really the main bad guy, but they end up being the final bad guy because they're trying to revive Shredder through mystic armor, but they have to collect the pieces like it's Pokemon. So they have implied magic skills. Literally, the two main foot officers, their heads are on fire, and that's never explained.
Wonderful.
But they can unleash origami paper foot soldiers because, that gives the turtles free reign to just shred them.
Yeah.
They do have other human recruits, and one comes up that's of note, but we'll talk about her later. Then it goes into a weirder territory. We have the other the main season 1 villain is Baron Draxum, voiced by John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
And he represents the yokai. That's what the faction is named.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I had to look up the word because apparently it's Japanese for demon, but
Yes.
basically he wants the yokai to be out in the open in the overall world, and he thinks the humans have intruded too far. And to basically bring more yokai onto his side or create foot soldiers, he has quote-unquote ooze-skeetos, which is the mutagen put into mosquitoes that to push it into people.
All right. West Nile mutagen, got it.
Yep. Other yokai are actually quite content with existing in their own shadow world, including one Big Mama who is a mutant spider, and the former girlfriend of Splinter we find out later on.
That works. And
then the third faction here is largely just mutants. It's not just the 4 turtles and April, but it is mutants throughout this version of the franchise. Some are enemies, some are friends, and some are in between. Some basically frenemies. So, yeah, there's too many to talk about here. One I think makes me laugh still the most is Todd. Just Todd. He's like the most genuine, nice guy you'll ever meet. He is a mutant capybara, and he is jacked. But he also is really nice and makes lemonade for anyone who will ask.
Well, now I need to look up what he looks like, because that is an incredible description. Oh my god. Yeah, okay. I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know if it was that, but also, you know what? I love this for him. Good for him.
What, did you see one where he's muscle building, or one where he's just regular, soccer dad?
Regular soccer dad.
I'm seeing something here where he looks like a Super Saiyan in front of the full moon. That's real?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God,
there's a lot of stuff in this franchise that refers to others. So
fantastic.
It's really funny.
Yeah, I'll drop one of his muscled form here.
Beautiful.
It's great. He looks like an old fighter, He's like getting up there. He's really experienced. Doesn't really stop putting himself through the motions. It's great.
Yep. So
Beautiful.
There's not really a lot of gravitas in this series, other than the occasional Splinter reflecting the fact that instead of this venerable ninja master before he became the Rat, he was a Bruce Lee takeoff. He was an action star.
Okay.
So he kind of misses being the not Bruce Lee.
Well, that's
not Bruce Lee.
That's always the fun thing, is to see what people do when they're no longer human, or they lose their lives, the lives that they had, things like that. Because then how they deal with it, or how they bring that up into their new life and stuff, it's fun. And that's exactly what this looks like.
Yep. So, like I said, I didn't give this one a fair shot when it first came out, and I'm sorry I didn't. Because when I went back and later watched it, this series had me howling in laughter. Just how funny they really are.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing you did end up then giving it that chance, because you learned something exciting and new, as it were, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and when they do get in the end game and Shredder is a player, he is terrifying.
As he should be, honestly.
Yeah. What we didn't get, because this series only went 2 seasons with the final movie, is that they had 3, 4, 5 seasons planned out, and there were other turtles supposed to come be part of this. The 4 boys were not the only 4.
Right. It's a damn shame that we didn't get more then.
Yeah. No.
So, wait a minute.
Okay. So that's all of the TMT I've consumed.
Okay, so is there any that you intend to catch up on, that you want to form an opinion on, that you haven't gotten into? Is there anything?
I'd like to go watch. Honestly, I'd like to do the Archie comics. They started in the same place as the '87 cartoon, but they actually went off in their own direction.
Yeah.
I know enough about them that I can make a few comments. Like their version of Bebop and Rocksteady eventually went, chaotic neutral. Like their animal sides won out. They wanted to stop being bad guys.
Okay.
Oh.
Just wanted to get along in life, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. So yeah. I hope you get to go through the Archie run and see what's good there. But also, is there anything? No, is there anything like new of note that's coming out for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that you're aware of?
Like I said, there's the new movie that came out in 2023 and the cartoon that came out with that. So I've seen the movie, and I'm kind of reserving judgment on the cartoon that came after it because it's not really for me anymore. This is like the first major version of the franchise to really break off, and not like everything I've mentioned to this point. There's always a certain deference and respect to what's come before. They are doing a completely unique thing, which I respect, but I don't think I can make statements on it yet.
Yeah. When it comes to like all of the different kind of transformation stuff that we've seen and talked about across all these different like iterations, is there any that you would say like really stands out to you from a like a unique storytelling perspective? I know we've talked about a bunch, but like, is there like one that you would say like towers over the others?
Honestly, I would again, I've sung the praises of it already, but the 2012 CGI cartoon G3 is probably the best succinct version of this whole franchise. And not only do you see a lot of mutant transformations, they have really good writing chops to explore what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's good.
As for me and the whole furry side of things, do I enjoy that part of it? Sure. I'm not in as much as... I've talked with Zil about this. I'm not as much into the TF as the rest of y'all are. It was actually kind of where I started in the fandom. It's not my main focus these days. No joke, the very first furry website I found was Transfer.
Happens to the best of us.
And that was me trying to look up werewolf lore for a college assignment.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you ended up at Transfer when you're not looking for it. But yeah, I can see how that would turn you there.
Google image search had just come out. Let's leave it there.
Yeah. And it'll show you
that
things.
Was the Wild West.
Arguably better that way now.
Yeah. God.
Well, back when Google image search first came out, it did not have filters.
Nope.
No, it did not.
Not like it does currently.
Fucking jeez. But yeah, no, I think one of the things I just appreciate about the franchise as a whole is the fact that it's always had that kind of unique connection to transformation. And as you've kind of shared, like, each iteration has its own unique kind of relationship with it, but they all have their own perspective on how to incorporate it into the narrative. And I think that's definitely worth a kudos or two, because, doing unique stuff takes guts sometimes.
It really does. And this all started on a comic book studio that was literally called Mirage because they weren't sure that this wasn't going to bankrupt them.
Yeah. Oh, man. Awesome. Well, I did want to make sure I also left some time for some audience questions, because I figure even if you're not as let me say that again. Even if you're not as much into transformation, you still have an opinion on it, and I think we've got some interesting questions for you to opine on with us. And so the first question I have is from Other Side, and actually this is quite pertinent, particularly, I guess, for you to chime in on potentially. Other Side asks, do you have a hot take regarding TF, TF art, or the TF fandom? And if so, what is it?
Hot take? I don't know. Cold take would be more likely. Like, I appreciate for what it is. It's not necessarily the first furry art I look up. when I'm in, or but at the same time, I get okay. My hot take then.
Yeah.
I would want to see media that actually thinks through the medical and biological implications of actually having to do this a lot more often than just then poof, you're a snake, or poof, you're a capybara.
Right.
So again, Zill knows this, but more than 10 years ago now, I did National Novel Writing Month to try and put something in paper where I tried to explore that poorly. Yeah. It didn't come out as well as I thought. I did hit over 50,000 words. But I tried to write out a more, try to go full Michael Crichton and write out a medically plausible version. Not as plausible as probably Crichton would make it, but yeah. So,
yeah.
If my hot take, as much as I appreciate the quick transformation thing that you see, magic, science, or whatever, I would actually like to see a slow burn one now and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
And probably a bit more scientifically explained than, say, some of the transformations we got on Star Trek.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm remembering that. I'm remembering that episode where Picard and Data return to the Enterprise, and it's a literal jungle, shall we say?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Libra, do you have a hot take you'd like to share? I feel like this question's less relevant for us because I feel like we spend half our time giving hot takes on the TF fandom, but I don't know if you have any you want to drop on us.
I am going to piss some people off again.
Ooh.
Yeah, this has to do with the porn that gets made. I think that people are either not aware or really dismiss a lot of the zoophilic stuff that gets uploaded. And maybe I didn't say this clearly or whatever, or maybe it was wrapped up in another point, but I'm just going to shine a light on this in particular. I think it is really off-putting when somebody does feral transformation and then they have this really sexualized pose of the thing already finished and it's just an animal. It's not a monster. It doesn't look like whatever. It's just an animal. But in terms of what the animal should be, and it makes me wonder, do you have this thing positioned in such a way where you think I want to fuck that thing? And that comes off as really fucking weird to me. And, it happens a lot. A lot. It happens so goddamn much. So I know people will be like, well, it's different. Well, it's that. And they'll rationalize it. But sometimes, no. And also, even if not, do you really want me to be attracted to, just the undercarriage of just some animal because they just finished changing? That's it. The fun's over. The fun's over for me. That shit makes me wonder where their head is at when they're actually doing that sort of thing. That's my fucking hot take. And I know this comes off as slippery slow type shit or whatever. Yeah, this makes me sound like some right-wing fucking weirdo. Because I know that it can come off as it's supposed to be whatever it is, and if you don't like it, you don't have to whatever. But I was asked the question, and that's the answer. And also, I know furry isn't all zoophilic shit. I know what I make, and I know what it looks like. I also frame things in a very particular way. Just as I see people also framing other things in a very particular way.
Yeah.
So I have questions and concerns. What about you, Zill?
So my hot take is a bit different, but I'm sure I'll still piss people off a little bit. So I find that the best transformation writing, specifically the best transformation writing that is on the not safe for work axis, is written by people who clearly have fucked before. And I feel unfortunately, there's a lot of TF writing from a not safe for work angle that people are trying to approximate a certain experience. And that's not to say that there aren't people out there who are doing it very well, in which case, my hat off to you. But there's many a times where I'm reading something that is supposed to be hot and horny, and I'm I don't think you know what sex is. And that's okay, but maybe this is not the medium for you to be writing about. So I would just encourage people to have life experience before they write certain things, because I think your writing will be better for it.
Oh my god,
and that's
you just
my
made
hot
me
take.
think of Robot Chicken in that moment. Oh. Just again, Squirrel. It's the short where their token nerd is transported into Game of Thrones, and he tells Daenerys what to do to Khal Drogo, and shall we say, a penis fracture happens.
Yes.
And when they confront him, he's just like, "Hey, I don't know how sex works. What do you want from me?"
And this is exactly why people should have experiences before writing about certain topics. So that is my hot take, honestly, because genuinely, I'd say 9 times out of 10, you can tell. And it's fine, like, write for yourself, but maybe consider having a bit more experience in that area if you're going to really get into it. Because let me tell you, it will elevate your writing. I'm just saying.
Yes.
I mean, there's a reason that very old wisdom when it comes to creative writing is write what you know.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
Awesome. So the next question I have is from Paula Brady, and it is a permutation of Fuck, Marry, Kill, and it is instead called Months, Hours, or Poof. So of the species that I'm going to mention, which one would you want to turn into and have the changes take the longest, like months, a shorter period of time, like hours, or just skip to the finished form, like a poof? And the 3 that have been given to us are horse, deer, and elephant. So I ask my friends here, months, hours, or poof?
Deer poof, because the sheer volume of calcium you'd have to do to grow antlers, should your deer be one capable of growing antlers, would be considerable. So that...
Interesting.
But the other 2, I'm caught between, because, yeah, in either case, there's both good and bad there for if you want to give horses the months or hours, or elephant.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say elephant hours, because otherwise growing that trunk over months is going to be a thing.
Oh, it's going to be a whole thing.
And I guess horse would be months then.
Gotcha. How about you, Libra?
Oh, man. It's actually hard to rationalize. I really wouldn't want to spend a long time going through the elephant thing. But then if it happened all of a sudden, I could destroy or hurt a lot of things that I don't want to. So that's difficult. I think, it's like, practically speaking, I think the elephant one should be the months-long one. Mostly because you can prepare for that. That would require, I think, the most preparation. Because living in North America is like, this is not elephant country at all.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I guess, like, it was just like hours, months,
Or poof.
or poof. I think I'll take, like, poof as a deer, because deer aren't too big, Probably the amount of chaos that could be caused might be relatively less, and plus people aren't really threatened by deer,
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I'll just default to a horse over hours. Yeah.
Gotcha. I think for me, so I would also pick deer for the poof, mainly because I think the actual process of the antlers growing in would be really painful, and I would want to skip that. I think I would pick elephant for hours, because part of the appeal of elephant is like the incredible amount of mass that you're gaining. And I feel like that over a slower period of time would just not be as enjoyable as, like, within a few hours. And then that would leave horse for months, which honestly, yeah, I think that one, at least for me, fits the right spot, theoretically, because you'd have to get used to, like, the hooves and such. And I mean, I guess I'm copping out by having deer just be the poof, but whatever.
Hey, you asked the question of what we would do, and the fact that we all agree on deer being poof is fine.
That is pretty funny, actually. Awesome. And then the last question is from Chozo FS, and it is actually specific to me. And so the question for me is, do you ever have issues sitting with your tails in public or private? How do you like to deal with situations where wearing a tail is suddenly physically difficult? This is a delightful question. Thank you so much, Chozo, for asking me. So as everyone knows, I have like 17 tails, and each of them have different, I guess, like issues with like sitting. Hilariously enough, sometimes the short tails are not the ones that are the easiest to sit with. I will say that the husky tail I have, for example, it very much feels like a nice cushion, but it very much like pushes your like lower back out a significant amount if you're sitting with a chair with a back. So I would honestly say that for a lot of the sitting stuff, the longer the tail is, the better it is, because you can have it kind of draped next to you on the chair. That's what I'm literally doing right now with a Lombax tail. So, you know, it's much easier to do it when it's longer. The middle range can be a bit awkward depending on what type of tail you're looking at. And then I guess, like, how do you deal with a situation where wearing a tail is physically difficult? Again, it depends on the tail. I would say that with ones where they stick out a lot, so like I have a dragon tail that sticks really far the fuck out, I definitely have to be a little bit more cognizant of where I'm going and how I'm interacting with people, because I don't want to turn around and whack someone with it. And that has happened before, and I do have apologized for that. But I'd say the other one is, like, at least in terms of physicality, a funny situation that I actually have to think about a lot is if I have a really long tail and it's rained recently, or it is raining, I have to make a kind of judgment call in terms of whether or not I actually wear that out, because obviously the longer a tail is, the closer it is to the ground, and they can get quite dirty. So at least in those situations, I will usually wear a shorter one. And I guess the only other kind of situation I can think of where it becomes physically difficult, and I guess this would be to my seatmates' chagrins, but I do wear my tails on planes, and I generally try to get an aisle seat anyways, so I will usually position the tail on the aisle side so I'm not invading anyone's seat. But the flip side or caveat to that is sometimes I'll have to move it out of the way if, like, the little drink cart is going along. So I have to be cognizant of that as well. So lots of things to think about from a tail wearing perspective, but that's part of the fun, in my opinion.
I could add a little bit to that. I clearly don't have the volume and number you do, but back when Lemon Brat actually sold species-specific hoodies,
yeah,
I bought a kangaroo one, and that tail can be a pain in the butt if I want to sit down for a longer time. So
yes, I will say that one of my illustrious tails is a kangaroo one, and I do love it. It was actually one of the earliest tails that I bought. I think it was actually before the pandemic. I think I bought it at AC 2019, which is a long time ago. Jesus. Yeah, very good tail. Awesome. Well, that was all the questions that I had. I don't know, Iron, if you have any questions for Libra and I.
So, if we want to take this back to TMNT, did you watch any of the Clear Copy series that came out of that?
No.
I mean, Biker Mice from Mars, certainly. It's probably a popular one. What else was in there at the time?
Wasn't Street Sharks one too?
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen Street Sharks. I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah, one that didn't last long was Bucky O'Hare. So,
Bucky O'Hare was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles knockoff?
In the same vein. I'm basing this on TV tropes, so say what, keep that what you will. There's, well, of course, Road Rovers, and oh, God, I can't believe I liked that series at the time. Yeah, it was written for kids. It was even stupid then.
Yeah.
And,
we're allowed to write, we're allowed to like poor children's shows.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not beating myself up for it. I'm just looking back on it and I'm like, how did I not see through this? Because you were a child.
Just enjoying funny looking stuff. No, I never really watched any of those other ones. They never appealed to me. The hook was never there for me. I remember them. Great that they're memorable. But I never watched those and thought, this could be fun. I'm gonna tune in the morning. Yeah, no, I don't want to do it. I don't care. So no, and therefore I don't really have anything interesting to say about that.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
What, these are...
Street Shark just raises so many questions, though. They're able
In
to...
what sense?
They're able to swim through concrete. How?
I mean, yeah.
Well, since concrete and water can conduct both heat and cold at roughly the same rate, therefore you can swim through it. Plus, it's made with water in mind, then it has to dry out. So, science.
Noted for the record.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I don't know. It gave us some good TFE goodness, so I'm not going to criticize it.
That's fair.
Sure, fine, I guess. Whatever.
Also, it did give us an incredible, completely shredded, muscular orca. Gotta love Moby Lick.
Oh, God. I had forgotten about the name.
I regret nothing.
No, there's nothing to regret there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Iron, for coming on. It was great to have you. And if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
Well, I'm on Blue Sky under Iron Boomer STL, obviously. You can find me there. If you'd like to find my podcast, we're over at recorderonthewall.com. And we're on the major podcasting services, obviously, Apple, YouTube, Spotify.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Hell yeah.
That's great.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much again for coming on, and thank you so much, everyone, for listening to the episode. I hope that you all learned something, and go check out some old TMNT episodes, because there's plenty of good ones, as you've already heard here. And yeah, I hope everyone continues to keep an open mind and stay TFE, and we'll see you back here again next week.
Exploring the deep, dark New York sewers. It's fun, as long as you don't smell it.
Yeah, how do they get the pizza delivery down there?
That's a good question.
Everybody needs their money. Everybody's making it through. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Good night, folks. Good day. Good time.